NASCAR is dying. Team owners and drivers are furious, and it's all because of one thing that wouldn't even cross your mind. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch have been two of the most vocal people about this ongoing problem, and it seems like we're entering what's been hanging around the air for quite some time, a NASCAR split. Join us as we go through the ever-raging battle between the team owners and the drivers on one side and NASCAR on the other, as well as the problem that is going to put the sport in final sleep mode. We have one promise for you: we won't waste the next 8 minutes of your lives. NASCAR is having two ongoing issues right now, one of which has been discussed about a lot in the previous period ever since October 2022, and the other one, which, although discussed, seems like it isn't notching any progress towards. We'll start with the business model first, and then we'll talk about the one thing that literally drives NASCAR forward. So make sure to stay where you are in your seats. Before we go deep into these two issues, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification posts. The current business model in NASCAR is one that the team owners perceive as broken, one given the fact that they are barely surviving at this point. The percentages stand like this: NASCAR takes 10%, 65% goes directly to the tracks, and the team owners have only 25% of the pie, which is estimated at $820 million. NASCAR's family owns the majority of the tracks that are driven on during the season, meaning that aside from the big bucks that are guaranteed to them, the extra income is guaranteed from these venues. On the other hand, the teams have to satisfy themselves with 25%, and this is something that's perceived as a survival model by many NASCAR team owners and executives. Curtis Polk, the business partner of Michael Jordan and the one who has invested in 23XI Racing, says, "The economic model is really broken for the teams. We've gotten to the point where the teams realize sustainability in the sport is not very long-term. This is not a fair system." The fans are also very vocal about this issue, and it seems like they are encouraging NASCAR's team owners to go their own way, towards a split. Whether this would turn out to be good for them or not, this is a huge question mark, given the fact that the France family has an enormous influence over the sport and the law that surrounds it. But after the majority of the team owners boycotted the quarterly meeting with NASCAR, it's evident that they are not going to let things slide left and right anymore. Quite the contrary. They are ready to take things into their own hands and follow a path that has been semi-paved by one of their own, Tony Stewart. Still, this would be only one issue that covers our video, and whether or not the business model is something that will be changed, only time will tell. The current situation is that NASCAR doesn't care too much about fulfilling the wishes of those who bring the most money, the team owners, mostly through their sponsorships, as around 80% of the money comes from this source only. Therefore, a driver's fate is literally in the hands of whether or not a sponsor is ready to support its cause, and whether or not a sponsor believes that this particular driver can be good in the near future. We've seen a situation in which a two-time Cup Series winner had to leave his team after 15 years with them, as Kyle Busch was supported by Eminem and had the nickname the Candyman all along. However, now he has to drive for RCR, and it's not because of him. It's because the sponsor didn't want to continue the collaboration, with the saga between these two going on and on. You may be wondering, why am I talking about Kyle Busch's saga with JGR? Because he is very relevant for the next part of the video and the problem that would have never crossed your mind in the first place, the next-gen car. Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin are among the most dissatisfied drivers with the next-gen car, one that was supposed to bring a new dawn and new era to NASCAR. But what it has brought so far is concussions, and drivers having to retire due to the consequences of them, as was the case with Kurt Busch. For things to be even worse, the crash that he sustained wasn't that harsh at first, and Alex Bowman had a similar accident in which he had to pause for 5 racing weekends. All in all, the next-gen car has failed to meet the safety requirements that it needed to meet when it was first introduced in 2022. And from that point on, the drivers were simply raising their voice and their opinion about whether or not it's worth putting their lives at risk when the car isn't able to withstand great crashes. After all, this is a sport in which great speeds are achieved, and just a small mistake can be the difference between life and death. So I fully stand by Busch's statements that the car isn't safe and it shouldn't be driven as such. However, a couple of days ago, he even went one step further by putting all of the blame for the recent failures of RCR on the next-gen car, even though he's had a great start to the season. When talking about this matter, the former Candyman said, "Obviously, the shorter spoilers and the loss of strakes have created less downforce for the car. Unfortunately, this has been a detriment to our team right now, and kind of what we are struggling with, to where we are loose at many of these tracks, that we are going to where we run with the lower downforce. We are still trying to work through that stuff and get our stuff better, but we have to fine-tune where and what that is exactly to make sure that we come there and have that competitive effort. It's a work in progress for us trying to work through all of those things." But when he was asked about the safety of the car, Busch said that NASCAR could always do more regarding this matter, and there is never enough when it comes to upgrading the ultimate priority of the drivers, their safety. Imagine having to watch what's happening with Alex Bowman and Kurt Busch and then sit in that same car and drive it around the track, knowing that you could be the next one that comes out of it with the same consequences. Denny Hamlin has also raised his voice against the next-gen car's recent upgrades, and it seems like the car's innovation is moving more and more towards the negative side rather than the positive one. In moments where NASCAR is supposed to satisfy the driver's needs so that the body can implement the electrification more successfully, it fails to reach certain points of quality that the drivers are constantly noticing. The JGR driver in particular wasn't happy with the short-track aero package at Martinsville, one that made its debut at tracks like Phoenix and Richmond, and got quite some positive reviews from it. Most of the comments that were made after the Martinsville race, which was won by Larson after completing a late pass on Logano, were in the direction that there was literally no difference in the racing with the new package. All of this means one thing: the drivers are not happy with what they are receiving from NASCAR, and Hamlin isn't afraid to bash the sport yet again publicly. When talking about this matter, the JGR driver said, "The package was terrible. It's either the package or the tires. You can't pass. Cars that I was lapping 10 laps before, we caught a caution and I couldn't pass them for second. It's very difficult. Next-gen racing is all about strategy, execution on pit road, that's who wins. Rarely does the car that dominates or the best car win, simply because you cannot control the race when you need to, or at least we couldn't. We made a great strategy call at the end to get the positions back." All in all, it seems like the drivers and the team owners have had enough with NASCAR's policies. And if you add the regularities that have been going on in the previous races when it comes to giving penalties and the teams and drivers winning the appeals, one thing becomes more than certain: a split is almost a necessity for the team owners. At times where they are more influential than they would originally think, they have started to raise their own voice. And the fact that NASCAR isn't providing what's needed for them, and they are taking away a large portion of the pie from the owners, just fuels this fire even further. With this in mind, what do you think about a potential split in NASCAR? Do you think that the next-gen car's woes will be detrimental to the sport's success and existence in the first place? Or do you think that the team owners will bend their knee and accept everything that's offered by NASCAR in a powerless gesture? Let us know in the comments below. And after you do that, make sure to click on our logo on your screen so that you'll be able to keep up with more NASCAR-related content.